Wanted to get your take, Coach, on the pass rush. Obviously, only a couple sacks, and you've always said there's a difference between sacks and having good pass rush. So, what is your take?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into sacks, but I think you got to be accountable as a player and as a coach. You know, when you find good success getting to the quarterback, you know, you take the credit. So when you don't, you got to take the blame. You know, so I'm first in line to say that it hasn't been good enough and it has not been productive enough. Again, I don't judge it by sacks. Like if you watch the Oklahoma State game, I was pleased with how we got to the quarterback. I wasn't pleased that with the penalties and how we finished the game. But if you watch us rush before they got the lead on us, we rushed really well. Desperation does some bad things to pass rushers. They start looking past the man in front of them, and I've seen it at every level. And I think we have some of that where guys are using their hands in the run game, and when it comes to pass, they're already looking past the guy in front of them. And so our technique goes right out the window once they do that. We pride ourselves on having our eyes down, our hands in front of us, and attacking with good angles. We have not done that well enough to help our team. And again, the buck stops right here when it comes to that. You know, we're not a high blitz team, and so our four-man pressure's got to stand up against 5, 6, 7 when it happens. But there's always one-on-ones. There's always opportunities to pressure the quarterback. We have not done that at a high enough rate, and it starts with the way we're attacking them. You know, our technique is very good versus that. We've made good players better, and when we step away from those angles, that technique, the hand placement, it shows. And we've done that, and that's why I think it's shown in that. Sacks I throw out the window, but how many times we get on the quarterback's lap, that hasn't been good enough.
Rob, myriad factors I know, but when you haven't stopped the run well enough in recent weeks, what would you say are the main reasons for that?
Well, obviously, the main reason is going to be guys not being where they're supposed to be with the proper technique and the proper leverage. And what we do is, especially up front, but to stop the run, it takes 11 people, but it starts up front. And what we do isn't easy. You know, there's some guys that are up the field, they get to avoid contact. We don't. We initiate the contact, and we're there taking on double teams, 600 pounds versus 300 pounds, as long as it takes, And it's hard to do that, to keep your hands extended and your feet driving, but that's our job. So it's kind of works twofold. Even though it's difficult, that's what we do. You should take pride in it. And there's too many times, I think, where we're just a little bit, our hand placement's a little bit off, our eyes are a little bit off, we're leaning back on scoops. You know, there's some times when I got my hand on an inside guy and I'm getting pushed down, and I feel like the weight of the world's on my shoulders, and I'm moving fast to the sideline, and I got to stop that momentum by leaning back. Well, as I say that to you guys, it sounds like it makes sense, and it does, but it's the worst thing you can do as a defensive lineman, is when I lean back, I get soft with my inside hand, and I start getting soft. The whole thing keeps moving, and I'm losing ground. So I have to push and run at that angle. It's unnatural, and it takes a lot of discipline and a lot of guts to do, but we've done it here. We've done it here for a long time, and we've kind of, again, guys are trying to help the team, but we got to be tough enough just to fight through that and continue to do things the way we do it.
And what about the end situation in particular? Because I know that you moved BJ. Utah's a heavier team, but you've kind of moved your DNs back and forth at times, probably due to some things that you're looking to try to be able to do, at least in part, with the run game. I don't know, but what's kind of gone on there? Because obviously you have some veteran guys who you've been working with for a while who they're probably not doing exactly everything that you want from them at times.
Yeah, I think it works, on the one hand, it's schematic. With BJ, it was a situation where bigger offensive line that really did a lot of heavy things. Obviously, after the week before, we knew we were going to get those heavy doubles, and we did. Really wasn't a game where I think it was in his best interest, but he's one of my best players. So you got a guy that I know can move outside, away from me to steal reps with him. We haven't been able to get a speed package out on the field so far this season, and so his reps have come down a little bit because of that, and that's not what I want for that kid. He's a dynamic player. He's not ready to be an every down player, but he's a guy who needs to be on the field. So it was a way to get him involved. And then as you go on, when guys struggle or guys are finding themselves in a tough position during the games, as a coach, you got to do what you got to do. to move people in positions to say, hey, I need you to go. You might not be used to this position, or you might not have a lot of experience at this position, but you're the best guy for this right now to help us with this. Sometimes when you're getting beat in the run, you need to get run-stopping ends in there, guys who are going to be big and strong and hold points, right? And so you lose a little bit when it comes to the pass rush, right? Sometimes it's the other way around. Sometimes you get a team where you think, hey, we're going to move a lot this week, or we're going to be on edges really wide. Let's get some speed out there. And so some of it's by game plan, but in the game, there's been a lot more adjusting and having to get guys to jump in there and give it a shot than in previous seasons. So, and again, we're still early in the season. We got to continue to develop depth. We got to fight and give more guys opportunity to get quality reps. I don't think we have anybody in our defensive line that can just be an every down, you got to be on the field guy right now. We need to get everybody rotated and still find a way to build the room from the bottom up.
Coach, to kind of piggyback off that too, you're saying obviously the run against Eastern Michigan, but when Utah started going, they're running their offense and they start going up tempo, obviously they're not subbing. You can't get different defensive linemen in there. Now that that's on tape, my question is to your point, how do you combat that? Because again, teams see that, and like we always said, it's copycat league. So what are some of the challenges to combat that?
Yeah, that's what you got to do. You got to go out in the field and play through it. It's like anything. You get beat in power, right? You get beaten. You're going to see power from everybody. It don't matter if it's in their playbook or not. They're going to figure out a way to run power because they know you can't stop it. So the only way to stop the bleeding is to show that I can stop power, is to get together, work it, and make it happen. And we have tempo periods every single day to make sure, and we keep those guys out there. We don't sub them. One of the tools against, and you've seen it, is to mass sub. Is when they sub, they sub 1. That means we can sub 11 if we wanted to. It's the way to kind of slow that down a little bit. That's a long-term solution to it. That's like one of the things that kind of helps you during the game to slow the tempo down and get everybody settled. But to be honest with you, you got to play through it. And the guys on the field, whoever's there, has got to expect to be on the field for the long haul, because if they can play 10 plays, we can play 10 plays. That's not an excuse. The thing that's harder for defenses is that offenses, when they go up tempo, kind of know what the play is right off the bat, and the defenses have to find it. And so we got to be better at just reacting to that anxiety. That little bit of anxiety is just lining up, getting our ass to the sideline, understanding we always have base calls, not one, but several base calls we can get to, and trusting in that we got this under control. I think a little bit of that, we've already shown that a little bit. The up-tempo I don't think has been the thing that killed us. It's the lack of execution once the ball is snapped. We seem to be getting the calls. We seem to be getting lined up. We're not executing once we do. And so, that's been the biggest thing. But the only way to stop anything that's on film that you see, the only way to stop it is to get it on film that you can stop it.
And then to piggyback off that too, when you look at, you said like some players, kind of form goes out the window and they're trying to, whether it picks up or not, trying to make plays. You're coaching them to do that, but what are some of the things that you can talk to them about to not get out of? Obviously, just like you said, doing their job, not getting lazy eyes or dirty eyes, as you like to say.
The best way is to build up the room. The best way to do it is to build up the room. You got to go back at practice and work those fundamentals, go back to basics. That's one. And number two, you got to build up the room. Is like if somebody, you put them out there over and over again and they just continually not doing the job or not doing it the right way, then you got to get somebody else in there. So you got to create enough depth and give other guys opportunities eventually, right? But the standard doesn't change. It doesn't change, and if a guy's making a mistake and refusing to get it fixed, that's just, it goes against what team football is all about. You get somebody in there who's going to do it. So it's not something I can say. It's something that we need to do. We need to get in there, continue to work our fundamentals, harp on it, and get them better. And that's what we do here. And from top to bottom, everybody's about getting these guys better. But fixing it means going back to basics, going back on the sleds, going back and doing run reads, and taking more pride in just doing our jobs as opposed to trying to make plays. That's not the way we need to help this team. The way we need to help this team is doing our jobs every single play and doing it the right way.
If you want to get him in the hallway.
Okay. I wanted to ask about, obviously, with Omar being out, that causes another whole chaos kind of situation, I guess. But what is your take on when you've got TJ in there and Nesta at the same time.
Yeah,
You've
I
had to do
think,
that
you
out
know,
of
again,
necessity?
there's no need to panic in those situations. Both guys can play three, they can play nose, and I think one of the beautiful parts is they don't have to play it at the same time. So there's been a little bit of when they line up, those guys on the other side don't know when those guys are a three or a nose. We can move them, shift them, stem them. So there's a little bit of versatility, and there's some good things that come from that, having both those guys out there. So everybody's got a skill set, and those two guys definitely have a skill set where they can play strong. And they were probably the two right guys to have out there last week, and will be again at some point in time this year. So, again, they provide some qualities that Omar doesn't have, or whoever is not in the game. And like I said, that's why whoever's in the room, we got to get them better so they can all provide something when we need them.